Today's guest, Vincent Finazzo, is the founder of Riverwards Produce, a small batch grocery market in Philadelphia with two locations. And Vincent majored in art at Columbia College, Chicago, and came to Philly hoping to work at the art museum. But when that didn't pan out, he ended up joining a grocery chain called Whole Foods. And 15 years later, he now owns two brick and mortar locations, employs over 75 people, and has rethought what a grocery store can be. Vincent, thanks so much for joining the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into Riverwords, would love to just hear a little bit more about your background from yourself.
Sure. Like you said, I went to school for art and art history in Chicago. I'm Michigan native. I grew up in the Detroit area. I went to school in Chicago. I ran away to New York.
Hmm.
I worked in art galleries and things there. And then I ended up in Philadelphia trying to get a job at the museum and stuff like that. And Whole Foods was right near the art museum, and I walked in, and that was literally when they had, like, kiosks in the store that you could, like, apply through with a touchscreen, which does not exist anymore.
You applied in person.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
and, I applied for every single open position, and, yeah, they hired me as a janitor. I started at Whole Foods as a janitor. I worked my way around, I
And what year was this?
I think it was 2010-ish,
Okay.
and, yeah, I, worked my way into different departments, ended up in produce, was really good at it, became a buyer, moved stores around the Philadelphia metro area, and then came back to the store that I started at to run that produce team. And then I was young, I was in my mid-20s and got antsy and was trying to start things, and that's right when Whole Foods was starting to ki boil down their logistics to be more streamlined and function like a bigger grocery chain.
Hmm.
So things like, working direct with farmers and DSD stuff really started to stop. They wanted you to order from the warehouse so that the regional Whole Foods would all have the same things and kind of those like consistency aspects that uh they wanted to go for. So I left and I took a job with a national produce brokerage company. So think like any other brokerage company, but I would buy and sell produce by the tractor trailer, mostly out of the ports. So the tropical port down in Miami, Florida, Central Florida, like a Immokalee, which is responsible for growing a very large percentage of like commodity
Hmm.
produce. Like, an example, there's a company down there that I visited that we were talking like thousands and thousands of acres of green beans, just straight monocrop, little dystopian, you know, picking green beans, filling dump trucks, literal dump trucks with green beans that would
Hmm.
back into a facility, dump them into a chiller, and there would be a series of conveyor belts, and out the other end would shoot a pallet of pre-packed and bagged green beans. So
Wow.
very, very big ag, right? Which was a little different from the kind of organic and local side of things that I started, but it enabled me to understand how food moved around the country and around the world, and the idea of shipping and freight and ports and all of that. So I kind of grasped a little bit of that. And then I was living full time in Philadelphia, and friends were opening restaurants and bars in the neighborhood, Fishtown, which now is very different than it was uh, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Um, and I was the guy who was doing produce, right? So all my friends that were opening restaurants were like, "Can you get me a case of limes and lemons for the bar?" And I was like, "I can, but that's not really what I do right now." And then I kept getting asked. Yeah, I left that brokerage company and I started to deliver produce to restaurants full time. I would do that in the morning, and we can get into it, but you
Yeah.
don't make much money off of wholesale. Um, $5 a box is like average. So if
Wow.
you think 15 boxes, you're lucky if you're coming out of there with $50, maybe $70. And that's just what you make. That's not paying you or fuel or anything. So I grew the wholesale side of the company pretty fast. It was a popular neighborhood. There was lots of things opening up. I was the young dude kind of doing that. And so we grew it, and we started to have lots of leftovers because anytime a chef would call me, I would do anything that they would ask. They're like, "Oh, I only need a half a case of oregano." It's like, okay, well, the distributors, the wholesale markets, the big guys, they don't sell you a half a case. So I would buy a half a case of oregano and then I'd have another half case. And maybe if I could do it right, I could keep it until the next time they needed another half case. And this involved everything from like using my own refrigerator in my house to um a garage that a friend had, and like buying a refrigerator and ripping all the shelving and plastic out of it to get like the most box that I could to like stack things in there.
Hmm.
To building my own walk-in cooler in that garage, where there is a system called Coolbots, which are amazing. And they allow you to hack an air conditioner, like a window unit. So you can actually trick the thermostat on an air conditioner to run cooler and for longer temperatures without freezing up.
Hmm.
And you can insulate an area or a closet or whatever and kind of turn it into a walk-in cooler. So I did that, and I was in this garage, and
And Vincent, how
uh
how many how many restaurants were you supplying to at this
at,
point?
at this time maybe like 10 or 12.
Okay.
Not really paying myself, doing like construction side gigs to make ends meet, and I had really cheap rent at the time, so it was fine.
Yeah.
But kind of the origin story of Riverwards is saying yes to everything, no matter what it would take. And so one of these scenarios, there was this bar that's on the Delaware River downtown, it was a big popular like drinking spot, and it was fall and they were doing an Oktoberfest, and I was asked, sorry, it's my cat.
It's all right.
I was asked to get them like 200 pumpkins. And I knew where the pumpkins were. I knew how to get them. I knew the farmer that grew them, and I didn't have any place to put them other than this garage. It was my friend's garage, the back of her row home in Philly. And so I coordinated him to drop off 200 pumpkins in bins to this little garage so that I could like stash them for 3 or 4 days to then take them to this restaurant so they could do all their decorations for Oktoberfest. And as I was doing it, some neighbors were like, "What are you doing? Can I buy a pumpkin from you?" And that's literally how it started. So
Wow.
a few months later, we launched our first pop-up market out of that garage, which is a 20 by 20-foot garage. It didn't have power. I would run an extension cord from my friend's house. Um, and yeah, we opened with like a line down the street
With
for
just
these.
pumpkins.
No, no, I filled it with like other stuff to like when I opened the pop-up. The pumpkins happened naturally because I was just loading them.
Yeah, I see.
And so I would flip them on the side and, you know, that's when I quickly realized I was like, "Oh, man," like, instead of, adding 10 or 15 bucks to a full bin of pumpkins or whatever, I could add $3 to a pumpkin, and there's 50 in a bin, and now all of a sudden, the retail margins from my days at Whole Foods kinda came back into play, and I was like, "Oh, this makes so much more sense."
Yeah,
And
got it.
then yeah, filled that little garage up with produce, turned it into a tiny little market, and, opened it,
Great.
and it was crazy, and, the success was right off the bat.
Awesome.
So
Okay, I'm excited to dive into a bit more of, the founding story of Riverwards and how it's doing, but I'd love to just go back a bit to just even when you started at Whole Foods. Was that because you wanted to work at the museum in Philadelphia and then the
yeah.
Whole Foods was right next door? That I assume was just on a whim and you just needed a job? And I assume you applied to other places too, or were you actually focused and said, I really want to work in food because of XYZ reason?
So, I was applying everywhere.
Okay.
I applied to every museum and art institute in Philly. Um, Whole Foods, like, it was a proximity decision for sure, but, um, my family has been just a huge inspiration for me. Like, I grew up in an active kitchen with my mother, and my grandfather had a very large garden. I wouldn't call it a farm, but I would call it a very productive uh, piece of property. And I've always been comfortable around food, and I loved grocery stores. I've always loved grocery stores, so it was like not hard for me. I remember like in college when in Chicago, like going to fruit markets and trying to cook in my dorm room, and when everyone is just like eating junk, it was just natural to me to want to be like that.
Hmm.
So food has always been second nature.
Okay. And then tell me about the decision point of leaving Whole Foods to working at the brokerage. Why did you want to leave Whole Foods at that point?
I was just getting antsy. I was young. I wanted to start stuff. Um, I had been approached by other wholesale outlets
Mm,
because, like I said before, Whole Foods had switched the way that they did things. So they stopped allowing buyers to buy directly from farmers to deliver straight to a store. And they wanted it to go through their hubs. And those farmers kind of got cut off. So they would keep calling, or they had my number. They'd be like, "What's going on?" And I'd be like, "I can't buy from you anymore." And so
I
I
see.
kind of knew that there was like the supply was there, the resource was there.
Got it. And when you were at the brokerage, you said you were working at a lot of ports and places where, single source ingredients would come in and come out packaged the other end.
Yeah,
Who were these from other countries? And,
yeah.
green beans from another country coming into, somewhere on the East Coast. And then who were you selling to? Just all the grocery stores in the US? Or tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So this operation was mostly based in Florida.
Okay.
So there is a tropical port in Miami that mostly takes in things from Mexico, Central and South America, and some African, East African countries.
Okay.
Um, then you have Central Florida, which I said like is a big part of the US's agriculture industry. Grows a lot of big ag stuff, tomatoes, onions, things like that, commodity produce. And then you have the Philadelphia terminal market, which gets a lot of stuff from Europe and items via the I-95 corridor that would come up from Florida and the South and things like that. And then you have Hunts Point in Queens. And they get a lot of stuff from overseas as well. So you i- in the grocery store, on the East Coast, you're getting a wide selection from all over the world
Hmm,
most of the time.
okay. So you're helping brokerage these ingredients to different fulfillment centers who would then also distribute to local grocery stores or chains as well.
Right. Sorry, you did ask that question. Okay, so I would then buy the container, one item like limes or eggplant, and then I would sell that to uh, smaller distributors or regional grocery chains distribution centers. So, like, I would have a number for some buyer of tomatoes at Giant, and I would call him and I would say, I have these coming out of Immokalee, Florida, and they're this price FOB. And he would say, I need them cheaper. And then I'd call my boss and then, and play the whole game. And then we would sell them. I would sell all of it sight unseen.
So you never even touch any of the limes or the green beans.
Never.
It's okay. You're brokering the transaction. It makes sense.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And I did that for a little over a year. There was good money in it, but it was relatively soulless.
Hmm.
And it was just a sales job.
Yeah.
I could have been selling, socks or water bottles the same way. But I learned I learned about these ports. I learned about everything from supply and demand in a physical sense to arbitrage to, just the things that happens with fresh food.
Yeah. Yeah, and then with that experience, you were then able to work as a wholesaler to restaurants in the Philadelphia area because you understood how these products moved in from either overseas or even locally, um, and you wanted to have a more fulfilling job. Was that the transition to why you started working with restaurants?
Yeah, it was more of a connection to where the food goes. And I from being in brokerage, I would know the produce houses that specialized in certain things. So when it would come to a restaurant in Philadelphia that needed something, I would know who specialized in those typically. So I could go to them now as a customer, not as a vendor, and buy it.
Mm,
And it started with me and my Honda Civic to I bought like an old bread van with like sliding doors. It was sweet. It would only go
yeah,
like 50 miles an hour. Um, and fill it up and deliver it. And I would just fake it in the way. I would hit up other distribution companies to restaurants and talk my way into getting their price list to see how they were pricing things. And then I'd be like, okay, I can fit it in this range. I can make this money.
yeah. And are
Yeah.
you were fulfilling these orders yourself to the
Yes.
restaurants? Wow, out of your
Yes.
own car. And you said around 10 to 15 restaurants you were working with and they're $5 a box. And how much does a restaurant order? You said around 10 boxes?
Well, it can depend. You can get a local bagel spot that just wants like something a couple times a week,
Mm,
right? They want
mhm.
vegetables to make veggie batches of veggie cream cheese. And then they just need like cucumbers, lettuce, tomato, onions, avocados to put on top of bagels.
Yeah.
But they just need a case every 2 or 3 days. So you stack that, and yes, I up until this point in the story, it is only me. I will let you know when I hire another person.
All right.
So
How much money were you making doing this?
nothing, barely anything. I think the first year Riverwards, like I think the first year Riverwards made like $35,000.
That's revenue. or
Yeah,
profit?
revenue.
Oh, wow.
No, oh no, I'm sorry. For the 35, that that first number is profit. Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going back in time because then it switches from net to gross just
Yeah.
by from numbers in my head. It was like 35,000 the first year, and I was like, I maybe can make this work. And then it jumped up to like 150, 160K. And then we started to get like velocity, and that was cool. And then that's right when we launched the pop-up.
Uh-huh. And the
And
150,000, just to be clear, this is we're still talking profit or we're talking the net?
we're we're talking net now.
Okay.
I'm
And
sorry,
just
we're talking gross now, not net.
gross now. So okay, so just for the audience so that they understand, the
Yeah,
150,000, you're selling $150,000 of goods to restaurants, but
yeah.
then the actual profit that you keep is maybe what, like 10, 20% off the
Uh,
top of that or something?
yeah, at this time though, I wasn't taking any money out of the company, right?
Mm,
It would just because here's the issue with wholesale, uh, is that you have to spend it before you get it, right?
yeah,
A
because you have to
restaurant,
pre-buy it. Yes.
yeah, you have to pre-buy it, you have to deliver it, and if you got good restaurants, maybe they'll give you COD. That'd be awesome. Um,
And COD for the
some
audience is cash on delivery, meaning they
yeah,
pay you when they receive it. But a lot of them, will pay you
don't
30 days later or 60 days
yeah.
later, right?
No, 60 or 30, it was like, 7 or 14,
Okay, 7 or
sometimes 3
14 days later.
weeks.
Got it.
Yeah, but then it turned into not only, like my typical day then, we have to start it at, like, 4 p.m., okay?
Okay.
So at 4 p.m. the day before, orders start coming in via email and text. Restaurant A wants 4 cases of potatoes and a bag of onions and red peppers, you know, um, and restaurant B wants arugula and radicchio. And
And you're keeping track of this over text and email?
I would then build spreadsheets. So it'll
Okay, so
come
then you
in,
put it in an Excel. Okay.
correct. So then yeah. So yeah, it's so funny because I haven't thought about this in a minute. So this is great. So yeah, it's insane. So it would come in via text, via voicemail, via email, whatever they wanted. I didn't
Yeah.
care. I would put it into a spreadsheet, and those orders would come in all night. So you think some restaurants, they would shoot their orders in at 4, 5, 6 p.m., but some might shoot it at like 10, 11 midnight. And so
Wow.
I would wake up at like 3:30 or 4 a.m., get the rest of them, put them into a spreadsheet, get into a car at first. The first purchase I made was that truck, and I bought it for like 1,500 bucks. And I get into that truck and drive it down to the Philadelphia wholesale produce market. And I would have a hand dolly and a list on a clipboard and a pencil. And I'd go and I'd buy every ingredient from every different house, do multiple runs to the truck, organize it in the back of the truck, then hand write. This is like in the very beginning, I would hand write invoices based on the receipts that I got. So I would just like mark everything up. I would do it, and and then I'd make notations on my own spreadsheet. And then I'd leave from the terminal and I'd drive and I'd hit all the restaurants. I'd deliver everything. And then I'd get back to wherever I was landing, take my spreadsheet, re-record it into uh QuickBooks. I think I used something called Zero or Wave in the beginning that were free financial
Sure.
programs, but then I quickly went to QuickBooks, um, and then start over.
Wow. That must have but there must have been so many mistakes, right? If you're keeping track of, text, email, voicemail, like, did you ever miss anything or what was the error
I
rate on
mean,
that?
errors happened, but I was pretty good. It was myself. I was pretty good
Huh.
at. at keeping organized.
Wow.
I think that's probably one of the reasons it worked is that I didn't have a lot of errors ever because these restaurants do not have time for errors. They can just go literally to anyone else. So some of them thought it was like a novelty to use like me
Yeah.
because they were like, "It's crazy. I can text you and then it just shows up. You do it just like the big guys." Um, and then, like I said, sometimes I would have leftovers because Alan, let's say you got a restaurant and you only wanted, a half a bag of onions. Well, then I got to buy a 50-pound bag of onions.
Yeah.
I got to put 25 pounds somewhere. So it just kind of dictated its own growth in a way where I needed a place to put stuff. And so through a friend, she's like, if you clean out my garage, you can use it. I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then neighbors, because we were in a city, saw me loading stuff in and out of this garage. And they were like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And
Got it.
that's kind of, yeah,
That's how it started. And then the pop-up you said was hosted at your friend's, or was it somewhere else?
friend's garage. So that garage I was using, I just like turned it into a market. I put tables and I set up produce and, the register system, because it was like, there was no register system. There was no investment. I had no money. So I literally started Riverwards with like $500.
Oh my
It was nothing.
god.
So like literally we had a scale and two calculators. And this was our register system for the first like couple of months where you would like weigh something and you'd input the poundage and get the number. And then you take that number from one calculator and then you put it in to add it in the other one to keep track of your total.
Oh my god.
And yeah,
What
it
what
was
year was
insane.
this?
Well, it wasn't 1945 like it fucking sounds like. It was like 2000, like I said, 2014, 2015.
Okay.
And we ran this pop-up and it was just a hit. Like the neighborhood loved it and it just went crazy. And
For
yeah,
how for like how was it such a hit? How did you get the word out? Or was it you literally just had it set up and people would drive by and just stop? Like,
it was very much in that early era of Instagram when things had like a,
oh,
a very like I'm trying to say like an innocence about virality. And, the right people kind of heard about it in the neighborhood. I knew a lot of people. And, a friend who wrote for one of the newspapers in like a health and wellness column,
I see.
and that's when health and wellness was mostly like eat kale and go to the gym. It wasn't at all what it is today.
All these
So,
supplements and
yeah,
peptides and stem cells. Yeah,
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. So that's how it started. And then a very good friend of mine, he was a real estate agent, what came into the pop-up and was like, "I wanna show you a building," and she walked me around the corner
Mhm.
to this big old firehouse that, has been in the neighborhood, 100 years and was like, "This is for rent." And the landlord met me there, and he was this, like, cool California dude, and he was like, "We really want you to go on the first floor of this," and I was like, "No way. It is too big.
How
I
big
can't
was
do
it?
this." Like 2,000 square feet.
Okay.
And, he really wanted it to happen. Later, this gentleman has been a very good friend ever since. But he said, "I want you to write me a deal." He goes, "Vincent, write me what your dream scenario is and let me know what it is." And my friend Laura was like, "You should do it. You should do it." And I'm like, "This is crazy. I don't know." So I go home and I write the most insane deal on paper. A lease, a 50, like 5-year lease, 3 options to renew, no rent. until first ring of register. They have to do all of this like white boxing and for me, and then rent starts at like $1,500 for 3 months, and then it goes to 1,800 the next three, and then it gets to 24, and then it gets to 26, and then it holds 3 grand for 2 years, and then it goes up to 4,000. Like I wrote this insane deal, and I gave it to him, and he looked at it and he said, "Okay," and I was like,
Are you serious? Well,
"Fuck."
get
I
set
was
the
like,
scene for us a little bit because that sounds way below market.
it was insane. It was way below my. I did that on purpose because I didn't think I could do it, and I didn't want to do it.
Why is he agreeing to do this for you?
Okay, so I cannot wait. If we can, he is such a funny person. He's a brilliant human because he saw the value in what local food could bring to the neighborhood, and
Mm.
he saw what a grocery would do to the 9 apartments that he owned above. He
Oh, so he owned the buildings, the whole building, and he thought
Yep,
this could bring extra value to the neighborhood and increase the value of also the apartments. Okay, that makes
yes,
sense.
and so yeah, I mean, he would go against what his partners would say, and he'd be like, "No, we're gonna go with Vincent." He had
Wow.
restaurants that wanted to go in there and stuff like that. And sure enough, so
What do you
he
think
said, "Yeah."
market rent was for that space? Was it like 5 grand, 6 grand, or
It
more?
was probably between like 6 and 7 grand,
And you
which
come
would
in at
be,
1,500 in the
yeah,
beginning. That's
yeah.
incredible. I need your
Um,
negotiation skills.
no, see, that's like the thing is like I am too honest for that.
That's
It
great.
doesn't work. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I just was like, this is how it has to be.
And Vincent, how long was the pop-up open before this opportunity came?
One summer season.
One summer season for a couple months, and then your friend came and offered you this. Okay. Well, yeah, thank you for setting the scene. I assume, you took it without hesitation and went off to the races?
Yeah, yeah. So I did it. I did a Kickstarter for $20,000, and I got that,
Cool.
and
What was
quickly
the gift or the product that you were offering on the Kickstarter?
varying degrees. Like, so the biggest one, I think that you would get like a CSA box that I would curate for 6 months, or discounts at the market, or gift baskets, and it was all food related
Got it.
things. Um, and then once I signed the lease, had some numbers, got the Kickstarter, a friend of mine who had money like looked at everything, and he was like, "All right, I'm gonna lend you $15,000 at 3%, so you can buy a small refrigerated truck, because that is integral to your operation. And then I'm also gonna come on as your finance guy, because again, it was just me, there during this pop-up, I am still waking up at 3 a.m., buying, delivering to restaurants, and then running this pop-up on Saturdays and Sundays, no days off for like, 2 years or something.
Wow.
Um, I don't recommend it. It wasn't the most healthy thing that you could do. Yeah, and then, we spent that Kickstarter money right away on a couple units of refrigeration,
Okay.
and opened the store in a very, very, like, infant state.
So, just help me understand because you signed the lease. Rent is not too bad. It's at 1,500. You raised 20,000 from Kickstarter, 15,000 from your friend. That's $35,000, and that's all you needed to start a grocery store.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you have to understand that when we opened, it wasn't at all what it looks like now. So I bought, like, when you go into a bodega and they have like three-door drink coolers that have the refrigeration on the bottom. They're
Yeah.
self-contained. You can get those for like $2,500.
Okay.
Okay. So I bought three. Um, I did the plumbing for the sinks in the back. Like I sweated the copper and I installed the sinks in the back room, in the prep room, and all that stuff. I assembled the walk-in coolers that we bought. That walk-in cooler was like 12 grand. Um, the tables and stuff that we used to the wrapping, I just used metro shelving and then I would like modify it and with like plywood and stuff to make produce tables. Um, our POS system, we had graduated from the fucking calculator, two calculators in the scale
Yeah.
to Clover, which I don't know if I don't even know if it's still around.
Yeah. It's kind of like a
Uh,
square.
it's kind of like a square, but Clover had the ability to hook up a scale. So you could sell
Oh,
something by the pound. And
okay.
in the beginning, Square did not have an integrated scale component.
Got it.
So we do all this, right?
Yeah.
We're getting press. Everyone's freaking out. It's this cool old building. The landlord, you know, did all this beautiful work to the outside, and we opened, and it's a hit. It's great. There's people coming in, and everyone's like, "This is beautiful," and we're making money. And we do like the day one of opening. We did like $10,000 worth of sales,
Oh my
A-
God.
and it froze. Okay, so I didn't freeze. Clover, like, they put a lock on
They
our bank
suspended your
account.
account?
Yeah, because they were like, "What's going on?
Is
Is
this
this
like fraud?
fraud?"
Yeah.
And so then we sold everything. And so, like, I know how to do is wake up early, go down to the produce terminal, buy more. I just was like taking money out of the register because there was no other way. So I would
Oh,
take all the money out of the register, but everyone pays by card. So we get less. And it took like a good 2, 3 days to get our account unlocked. And then that like after opening, no, I have to go back. That isn't correct. $10,000 is way too high for what we were doing back then. It was probably like $4,000, maybe over the course of 2 days that would add up to the 10.
okay.
Because in the beginning, once the hype kind of leveled out, I was like, if I can make $2,500 a day, 7 days a week, we probably can make this work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Tell me, when you first started, how many SKUs were there? Like, how many ingredients or products did you have in this grocery store?
Two or 300.
So I just, in my mind, you have to front the money to buy this. So how
Not
are
Not all the time, not all the time. So for
ah,
produce, yes. For grocery, you usually can get terms, 7 to
ah,
14-day terms, um, which is very risky, uh, but we were able to do that.
I see. So unlike the produce business, when you're selling to restaurants, you front the money, but because you are your own grocery store now, you get to set the terms. So you don't have to front the capital in the beginning for the products.
Yeah, correct.
I see. Okay, now the math works better in my mind because I was like $30,000 to set up everything, to buy all the goods. Like that doesn't sound like much, especially with 300 SKUs. But
Well, when we opened, there was like negative $100 in the bank account on opening day. Like,
oh
um,
man.
completely
Okay.
reckless. It's like, whenever I talk about it, it's just insane. But like I said, it kind of drove its own growth in a way.
Yeah.
The demand was there. People wanted food.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah,
How long was it from when you signed the lease to when it opened? Approximately.
Probably 8 to 10 months.
8 to 10 months, okay, and you were able to negotiate TI or tenant improvements by the landlord. They would do the outside facade and
Hmm.
then also help with the interior, and you would
Yeah.
start paying once you started making money too. Okay. Um, amazing, amazing deal and well done. Okay, walk me through what happens over the next few years, I guess. I mean, it seems like it was a hit off the bat. Was it just smooth sailing since then, or tell me a little bit more?
Um, there was constant reinvestment.
Okay,
So for the next, let's call it to 2019,
okay,
there was just constant, you know, hey, we've outgrown these coolers, or we need to add coolers in the basement, or we need to, upgrade our electrical panel to handle more electrical capacity. We need to, so that's when the real cost of opening this store added up
I
over
see.
those years. So for me to say to open our Fishtown location today, I would say it would cost um 1.2, $1.3 million.
I see. But for the initial one, it was just spread out over the years as you reinvested and got better equipment. Okay. Um, tell me a little bit about if you hit your goals or not. Were you able to do the 3,000, 4,000 plus per day? And how did it, you know, creep up over
Yeah,
the years?
yeah, we kept it really tight. And we were able to since we barely had any debt going into it, we were able to get into the black very quickly. After 3, 4, 5 months, um, and start generating some money, and I would just dump it into labor
Yeah.
and reinvestment, and that's just kind of what happened. We would, I would be like, you know what, by the front door, I bet if we spend $18,000 on a new drink case that's like big and open, and we fill it with drinks and we fill it with sandwiches and stuff like that, we'll get a good ROI. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's like, okay, spend 18,
Mm,
invest in it, fill it, invest in the inventory, and then wait for the ROI to come. And then we just did that all over that footprint and just micro merchandised it to the max, taking cues from stores in Manhattan and San Francisco on just like how to use every single square inch and pack it out.
okay. And are you able to share roughly what a top line would be for a grocery store like this?
What do you mean by top line? Do you
Your revenue,
mean
your total revenue,
currently?
or back then and currently.
Yeah. So, and you want it yearly or
No,
weekly?
just give me approximate. Is like we were doing 3 million, $4 million. Now we're doing six, or I don't even know what the numbers are.
Yes. So it was like $35,000 in the beginning, and then like that, like 160K. Then that went to like 380, and then that quickly went to like 700, and then we hit like 1.1 million, and then two, three. So right now, and then right before COVID, we were at like 4 to 5 million a year.
Wow, from $30,000 to 5 million.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's incredible. And this is with the second location already added on now, or this is just
No,
that single location?
just a single location.
Okay.
Pre
So
COVID.
and then just, like, from an outsider's perspective of grocery stores, sometimes the revenue number seems good, but the profit margin can be bad because, the margins on food isn't necessarily the best. How does that work? And then obviously with all the reinvestment that you're talking about, how do you think about that, from a business model perspective?
Um, we make our EBITDA percentage is 3.66.
Percent.
Yeah,
3%.
yeah.
Wow, that's so low.
Yeah,
but I
and
guess that
and
is what it is. Is that the standard in the grocery
yeah,
store industry?
that's actually pretty good.
That's
Um,
3%? Wow.
3.66,
Six
Alan.
six.
Don't forget the 6 at the end because it's almost 4.
Yeah.
So, and we are optimized in our 2 locations. So I will say, like, COVID happened, it hit us negatively in the beginning, because of there was limitations on retail square footage of customer occupancy, and so we could
Uh-huh.
only get so many people in the store at a
Sure.
time, and we lost a bunch of money in the
Yeah.
first 6 months, but then we took it seriously, and people respected that, and our profits grew. Um, in 20 in winter 2020, I signed another lease for our second location.
Winter 20.
Again,
Okay.
yeah, so wi December 2020, everyone is, like, in this post peak COVID, they don't know what's going on. Is retail dead? So I was able to negotiate, like, another really attractive lease
Nice.
on that, and then in 22, our second location opened up in Old City. That store is twice as big as Fishtown. It also has a new element, which is our juice bar, um, and that store is phenomenal and beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, we so that EBITDA percentage is what we are right now. Um,
Across the
we
blended between both or the single store?
across both stores.
Across both stores. Okay. No, this is really helpful to understand because, it's like, they hear 5,000,000 and then they're like, "Oh, wow, you made $5,000,000." Well, no, it's 3.66% of that. I just usually come from world of tech and software and e-commerce where like EBITDA margins are, anywhere between 20 to 40%, but
Yeah.
very, very different. But obviously with AI now, all those companies are collapsing, but people will always need food. So there's more durability, I think, in some of these businesses than maybe others.
Yeah. I think you just work to get the gross number higher,
Yeah.
um, because there is so many variables, and we're inching our way closer to an EBITDA of like 4 and 5%,
Nice.
um, as we work on our new locations. So right now, we ended 2025 with just under 16 million in gross sales.
Wow.
Um, yeah. Uh, so that's with the 2 locations. We're opening a 3rd location in Detroit in the spring. Um, and then we have a 4th location, hopefully in negotiation in Philly. And that store is bigger. That store is going to be 13,000 square feet. And that will feature new perishable elements that we don't do.
Yeah.
Um, I really do believe in physical grocery retail, and I
Yep.
think that there's, yeah, a resurgence there.
Yeah. And for those listening, if you haven't seen the Instagram of Riverwards Produce, I'd suggest taking a look. It's probably one of the most beautiful grocery stores I've seen, and we'll have to check it
Nice.
out when I'm in Philadelphia. Um, Vincent, now that you open two and you're planning to open more, what are some other insights about running a grocery store that you know the the layman wouldn't know about?
Um, it's extremely physical.
Hmm.
Uh, it is it's very old school in a sense of commerce, right? Because there is so much effort you need to put into something. And this isn't a t-shirt store where you hang a t-shirt and you wait. There is perishability factors. There is trends. There are, you know, before before social media, we would joke at Whole Foods and be like, why are all of a sudden all the raspberries just gone? Why is everyone buying all of the raspberries this week? And it's because like Oprah said that raspberries are good for you. And
Y-
now
Yeah.
if there is a food trend that will pop up or a trendy CPG company, and we're the type of store that's expected to have it, and we always do. And
Hmm.
so people come to us for that. They want to make the, you know, weird TikTok pasta, or they see someone on Instagram toting some weird, energy drink or adaptogenic,
Yeah.
I don't know,
I know,
lip
I get it.
gloss.
How big has, your social media presence, and you have, I think, 30,000 followers. How big has your social media presence, or how has that been a factor for the growth and marketing of your grocery chains or grocery
So that
stores?
is the only form of marketing that we do.
Okay.
And we I like to treat it as if it's an old school periodical ad cycle type of deal, where we just daily post items from the store, and it's very clean and simple. We
Yeah.
sometimes use it for information, but it's just like, these are these beautiful carrots grown organically from this farm, and they're in the stores now. Or, we're importing figs from California, or, you know, truffles from Burgundy, France, or mushrooms from,
Wow.
all over the world, or in our own backyard. And so we curate food that way.
And Vincent, how many SKUs do you think you have across your 2 grocery stores now? I know you started with 300, but I imagine
Yeah.
there's thousands now.
Yeah. It's like 4,300 right now.
How do how do people keep track of all this? That sounds like insane to me.
Yeah. And I don't do it by text in a spreadsheet anymore. That's for sure.
I hope not.
We have a very robust software program. It's integrated with our POS. We have grown from the free one that the bank gives you to
Okay.
one that the big guys use.
Okay.
And so everything is tracked through our software.
Okay. So when someone buys it, you might need to replenish it. But what happens when, people move stuff on shelves and like they get misplaced? Like how do you deal with that?
Yeah, you deal with it. Like, you mean an employee or a customer?
Like a customer or an employee, what if they like, they're like mixing stuff up? Like how do you stay organized with 4,300 SKUs? Like that's
Because there's constantly employees filling the shelf, and they're catching it in real time. There's a something that I will say, and listen, I have been asked to join every digital form of Instacart and DoorDash and Uber
yeah.
Eats or whatever. There is a human aspect to grocery that can't be misunderstood.
Hmm.
There are people in those aisles, there are team members working constantly. They are asking you, Alan, are you finding everything you need?
Mhm.
They will see you pick up a can of refried beans and then stick it in the baking section because you forgot something or misplaced it. It gets picked up within an hour, probably.
Wow.
It's just constant maintenance and upkeep. And we have a very strict standards about aesthetics and organization. The beauty of our stores is very deliberate.
Mhm.
Grocery stores typically are not beautiful.
Yeah.
They're big aluminum boxes with no windows. We have tons of natural light, and we design them to feel good. I am
Mhm.
I am hunting those off-screen moments of clarity for yourself, and that is what Riverwards' tactic is that we are nourishing for your body and your mind and your soul, and you can't get that stuff from a screen.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. Um, do you guys also work with those like, are you on Instacart too?
No. So, we do not offer delivery. The reason
Wow.
why is, yeah, so those sales are organic, physical sales. There is no e-commerce as of yet. And the reason why is I care so much about the in-store experience.
Yeah.
And I want you to be able to come in and sit there in front of the beautiful wall of produce and just like exhale disassociate, whatever you got to do. But I don't want an Instacart worker or a dasher like on their phone, like reaching around you, getting mad because the lines are too long because the cashiers are engaging every customer on a human level. There's no self checkouts in my stores purposefully.
Mhm.
And it's meant to kind of trigger that nostalgic fact of like a market experience, you know? So, and listen, I'm very well aware of the economic opportunities that delivery offers these days.
Yeah.
And we've been exploring our own form of fulfillment centers and things like that. But they're very labor intensive. And I watch a lot of the big guys that have deep, deep pockets open very large fulfillment centers and then close them. You know,
Mhm. Mhm.
Kroger did it in the South. They closed a bunch of them. Amazon Fresh just that doesn't exist anymore. Um, you know,
Oh. Hmm.
they started it. They built all these stores. They were banking on these digital carts and them to be retail food hubs for fulfillment, and they closed them all. They closed them all last month,
Wow.
or yeah, it'll be last month. So it's crazy, if food is you I watch the big guys attack it all the time. I watch them throw hundreds of millions of dollars at
Mhm.
projects. And right now, what I'm convinced is that returning to an old sense of grocery and commerce has value,
Yep.
you know?
I love how intentional you are with that decision, and it's honestly admirable because you are giving up potentially a lot of economics, by choosing to do so, but that does mean you stand for something too, and, as if I was a, citizen in Philadelphia, I would be more inclined to visit Riverwards than maybe some other grocery stores, so that's really cool.
Thanks. Yeah. It could change, I think there are ways to go about it. Um, but I think that there is such a visceral romanticism about picking your own produce out. You
Yeah.
know, I don't know what your diet is, Alan, but like I'm sure no one will ever pick a tomato for you as good as you.
Well,
And
maybe
that's
my wife, but that's the only other one.
yeah, right. But like if you've ever DoorDashed
Yeah,
or
of course.
Instacarted food, your produce, no one cares. They don't care,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not a can of beans. It is there is a life to it. So I think that, as we farm out experiences left and right, I want to hold on to grocery. And I think there's a way to marry tech and what I'm doing. And I've been working on systems for that. We're just taking it day by day.
Cool. No, excited to see what you do, but I know whatever you do, it will be intentional and with the customer in mind. So that's really cool to see. Um, Vincent, I know we're running up a bit on time, but one question I like to ask is if you could look back on your journey over the last 15 years, um, you know, is there anything that you would have done differently?
Sure. Um, I think trusted myself. Um, in the beginnings, I would always think that I needed a partner to do it. And then I would quickly learn that they didn't care about me as much as me, and that was frustrating. Um, you know, I just wanted them to care and to put the effort in, and I don't know if that's because I have high standards or I was working harder or what, but I didn't have the confidence to go at it alone a few times. So I've had a few partnerships throughout the process that have come and gone.
Hmm. Okay. No, that's a great piece of advice. And I'm sure for all the listeners, maybe about to make their own or their first brick and mortar store or open their first business, a lot of the times it feels like you don't know what you're doing. But I think, you know, most people don't know what they're doing, and you need the courage to start and just chug along.
Yeah, I would say don't worry about that. Don't don't get hung up on feeling like you mastered it, right? There's that 80-20 rule I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah.
80% of your revenue comes from 20% of your customers or vice versa. But there's a way that I like to look at it is that no one ever, or I should, let me restart that. Not many people do the last 20% of anything. And there's very few of us that finish something. And and it is so important as an entrepreneur to know that you do have to push yourself to finish it. And it might not be perfect, but do not get hung up on perfection. Do not. It will drown you, I promise.
Mm,
What you have to do is finish it, look at it. How can you do it better? Do it again.
mm.
Because
So
if you keep focusing on refining it down to the on a molecular level, you'll never ever get a thing done.
yeah, yeah. I think the one of the common sayings is don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough, and you just keep iterating, and it'll continuously improve. But you have to put something out there.
Yeah.
That's great. Great note to leave on. Vincent, if people want to get in contact with you or follow along the journey, what's the best way for them to do so?
The best way for people to get in contact with me would probably be to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. Um, Instagram gets pretty clouded these days, so I would stay away from that. There's a lot of messages there. Our Instagram is a beautiful place to follow along on the journey of the Philadelphia locations. Um, I am opening a new Riverwards in Detroit, Michigan this spring. This is a very passionate personal project about food access and food deserts, and we're gonna plop a Riverwards Detroit down in the Little Village neighborhood on the east side, and it should be open by early summer. I'm very excited about this, and I'm always open to talking with entrepreneurs or people that have an idea about food products or food businesses. Yeah.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, I'm really excited for the upcoming openings. And Vincent, thanks so much for sharing your story and your journey. This has been a really fun episode.
Yeah, Alan, thanks for having me.
All right.